accepted the friend request. And, I know we all get a lot of friend requests, especially in this
Yeah.
personal development space and whatnot, but I don't know, there was something about it. I confirmed, and boy, am I glad I did,
Mm.
because I mean, I started seeing your posts, and I started taking note, and I was like, "Whew." And Facebook like the algorithm clearly picked up on the fact that I was stopping
Yeah.
like in my thread to see
Yeah.
your posts, because there was something that was just like, I mean, it was captivating. And what was so beautiful is, as I was reading a lot of your posts and your
Hmm.
content, you were so bold, you were so raw, that it was
Mm.
as almost as if you were like speaking to my soul. You were speaking
Wow.
like to the heart of me. And
Yes.
it stopped me in my tracks. Like every time I would read a post, it
Yeah.
just completely stopped me in my tracks.
Mhm.
And so, again, I'm beyond grateful to have you here. So I would
Mm.
love to learn a little bit more about how you got here. How did you get to this place?
How did I get here?
Yes.
I had to go through a failed marriage to get here ultimately.
Mm.
And once the marriage was over and I was faced with a completely different future that I was not anticipating at
Mm.
all, I asked myself a very hard question. And the question was, what kind of man do I want to be? And it was, and am I ready to become that kind of man if I'm not that right now? If the answer is I'm not yet, then am I ready to take that journey? And I said this while I was in my car in the driveway, about to leave for the last time. And I said, I don't care how messy, how hard it gets. I want to know the truth about myself. I want to understand who I am. I want to understand women. I want to know where I failed. I want to know the truth about me. And I want to be the best man I can possibly be at any stage that you find me, that I'm on that journey. And so it came right back to that question. Well, what kind of man then do you want to be? And then I had to
Wow.
really ask some hard questions, like what beliefs. I came out of a Christian home. So what beliefs am I going to hang on to? Which ones am I going to let go?
Mhm.
What type of sexuality am I going to maintain for myself as a man? And, what's my new mindset going to be? What's my belief system going to be now? And so those are really hard questions I had to work through. And then from that came this emergence of, I guess you would call me an awakened man, a conscious man, a spiritually
I would
energized
definitely
man.
characterize you as that
Yeah.
110%.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about it is, and I didn't even realize this was happening, was I was allowing my feminine nature to begin to rise and become activated and express itself at the same time. And and it was through other women that I had dated that I began to understand the power of that, especially when you're in a relationship. And so I speak on that all the time for men. And so the other thing that I decided to do was I'm going to go on dating sites, not to hook up, not to find someone to date, but I want to use women to reflect back to me my imperfections, my flaws. And I can't think of a better way to do that. Plus,
Wow.
it'll help me reconnect with the female gender again after being married for 23 years.
Wow.
And to use that as to re-educate and to stay in a place of being teachable. I wanted to remain teachable and to see my
Mm.
faults and fix them. I had a really deep desire to change who I was because I knew I contributed to the breakdown of the marriage just as much. And I had to
Yeah.
own that, and I did. But it also meant then I can make some really deep changes in my life. And so out of that came this beautiful gift of having I have an insight or an understanding of women that most men do not have. I've been told that many times, and you can attest to that by what I write, that
Yeah.
it speaks to your heart. And
It
so it's
does.
and so that's the journey that I have been on for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
And so this is where I'm at right now. And I know it continues. I continue to learn more and more about myself and the feminine side of me as well,
Yeah.
and how powerful that is for a man to have that complete wholeness of expression.
Yeah. So interesting. So I'm curious, what have been your biggest insights when you think about understanding women?
Biggest insight is that women are absolutely the most astonishing, unique creatures on the face of the planet, and that it is very important that men understand them as much as they possibly can, and to take every opportunity to learn who she is. If a man's with a woman in a relationship, learn who she is, give her
Mm,
space, create space, give her
yeah.
the freedom to be exactly who she is, and watch and see what you get. So many men fear that because they feel they need to control a woman. I say no,
Mm.
you unleash her, you let her be who she is, and you will find you are blessed in ways that you never would imagine. That's one of the
Mm,
insights I've received from women, as far as understanding them deeper.
yeah.
Also, that their deep emotional outbursts that may seem very scary, whether it's through
Oh, the
anger.
feminine storm? Are you talking about the feminine storm?
Hmm. That feminine storm, if you can hold your ground with that, and allow that to be that, it comes, that same passion, I'll call it a passion, that comes out if you allow her to be that way in every part of her life. Then when it comes to intimacy, that also comes out that way. And so I tell men that you need to really allow a woman to be who she is. Let her express that storm, because that passion, you want that passion. You don't want to um, quench that passion.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. So many do.
Yeah.
So many do.
So interesting.
Hmm.
That actually, as you were talking about presence and holding space, there was that
Hmm.
one post that you posted. I'm actually going to read it if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Do. Do.
It was so powerful. And just for those of you that are listening to this, and I'll put this in the show notes. I can actually probably link the post in the show notes so you can actually see the picture. But the picture caught my eye um, because it's of a woman clearly a little bit upset.
Yeah.
She's hunched over, her body language. She's got her, her arm up into her eye.
Yeah.
Um, and it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah. It's a powerful image.
Yes, yes. And this is what it read. It says, "Man to man, holding space for a woman is a priceless gift. Creating a safe space is our duty. There is a depth of healing she will experience that no amount of therapy can match, no amount of video teaching or reading can touch. When the man can do this for you, and I mean really learn the art of holding space where you can be so raw and bare, and he is manning up that you no longer censor your emotions, then your healing can begin." Just that right there, just,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, wow.
Hmm.
When he understands he is holding the hurt inner child in you, and the powerful energy is conveying as he is simply aligned in his own love, will be like nothing you've ever experienced before. This is what I've learned, the art of holding space. This is what I teach men to do. And this is, I mean, Bill, this was like, I mean, it stopped me in my tracks that day.
Hmm.
And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't even remember what I was doing. And like, I read that and I shared it with my group.
Hmm.
And you obviously know what happened then.
Yeah. I do. I do.
um, and because what I think is so interesting, and even as someone who is on a path of, we're all on a path. I feel like we're
Yeah.
all on a self and, discovery,
Hmm.
rediscovery, uncovering, growing, contributing, serving at another level.
Yeah.
Um, and I believe the more I've allowed myself to embrace the feminine in me, because I've
Hmm.
had both sides, and you
Hmm.
know, we all have masculine and feminine, and it's how we
Hmm.
leverage it. I think in different situations. But the
Yeah.
more I embrace and really lean in and own my feminine nature, I find myself being so, like, almost, it's just this crazy polarity
Hmm.
towards just this appreciation, this like profound appreciation for the divine masculine
Oh, for
that
sure.
I was not always that way. I
Yeah.
definitely had a stint where I felt like I did not appreciate men the way they deserved to be appreciated. And I
Mhm.
also believe society, there's a lot of conditioning that
Yeah.
happens in society today,
Yeah.
around just men in general and masculinity. And I
Yeah.
think it's also what every woman is craving for.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. My posts, or I should say, the comments to my posts bear that out over and over. Women, the other night, last night or the night before, I did a post and a woman said, I'm crying reading this,
Mm.
because, oh, the men need this so badly.
And but you know what I think is it's really interesting is you're hearing us. Like
Yeah.
that's the biggest piece of it,
Hmm.
is that we feel heard, that
Yes.
we feel
Yeah.
seen.
Hmm.
And it's just like, and it literally, and I mean, I'm usually not at a loss for words, but reading your posts, like they hit me. And I'm
Yeah.
like literally, I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of the Alison Armstrong work, but she talks about, women and our connection to the universe, right? And
Yeah.
when we take a breath, like it's that connection, it's that like
Mm.
that reconnection with the universe. And literally every time I read one of your posts, I'm like I find myself taking a
Yeah.
breath like that, which is
Yeah.
so powerful.
Yeah.
It
There's
is
so much,
so
so
powerful.
meaningful. Yeah. And I would never have been able to write that way if I did not have a better understanding of my feminine nature. I believe that that's really a
Yeah.
part of it, because
Yeah.
I think it's allowed me to, like you say, see a woman, see you
Yeah.
or any woman and go, I can, in a sense, I feel what they're feeling because I know my feminine side now, and I recognize that in a woman. I guess that's really what it is. It's like I see you, I recognize you, and now I
Yeah.
can speak to that. And then I had a woman a while ago too say, how in the world can you know my heart? How can you possibly know what's in my heart? But you write and you know my heart.
Oh my
How
God.
do you do that? And it's because of I truly believe it's because I've activated and allowed my feminine to flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you create that balance in yourself? Like how does
I
that
don't know. I don't know if I create a balance. I think that I pull it forward as like you say, in a situation. If I need to be more masculine, I pull that forward.
Yeah.
And if I feel um, empathy, or if I feel the need to be more empathetic towards somebody, then I shift into more of the feminine, that more softer, nurturing side.
Yeah.
And I think it's just when you have that awareness, it's like, okay, I need to be this way, and this is what I'm going to bring forward. I need to stand up. I need to be strong right now. I need to be very masculine. I need to hold my ground. I need to speak my piece, speak my word, and stand up for myself right now, because love and empathy and encouragement and patience are very feminine traits and
Mhm.
natural things women carry, which are the things that men never received growing up from their fathers, but they're the things that they need to really work on. And I help men with that. I call it LEAP. It's LEEP: love, empathy, encouragement, and patience.
Oh, I
So
love
men to
that.
take the leap, take the leap. And that,
Oh,
what I'm
that's so
saying is,
good.
yeah, what I
I
say
love
is,
that.
learn to love, but it's all to begin with themselves. It's that journey. It's like, learn to love yourself, learn to have empathy for
Mm.
yourself, and have patience, and encourage yourself. We can be so hard on ourselves. We hear the voice of our fathers, and
Mm.
that's the program, that's the story we have been raised with, and that's when we go into adulthood with. And I was able to pull that out and rewire myself, or reprogram, and I know the power of the leap.
Yeah. So how does one do that? Right? Like what's the process?
The
How do you
pro-
do that?
Whenever, it means you have to really be present with yourself, and that when you feel triggered, it's asking yourself, why am I being triggered? Where is this coming from? Why am I
Mm.
feeling so hurt right now? What this person said. And then a lot of it, you can trace back to this. I can remember when I was a young boy, something similar happened. My dad wasn't
Mhm.
there for me, didn't stand up for me, and I was afraid, and I was scared, and I felt alone. I felt abandoned. I
Yeah.
didn't have a voice, and nobody saw me. I was kind of to be quiet, not heard, just seen. And I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel accepted. Those different things can trigger us, whether it's in a relationship or at work, or just in anytime you're with people, you're going to be triggered,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The problem is most people aren't present enough within themselves to realize, wait a minute, I'm being triggered. Why am I being triggered? And what should I do about it now that I know I'm being triggered? Am I
Yeah.
going to make a decision based on the trigger, which many people do, and then they end up making things worse? So for me, it's like, okay, when you realize, okay, something's triggering me, where's that coming from? Can I fix it right now? Is it something I have to do some deeper work on, or am I just being selfish or being very immature? Is my emotional immaturity or maturity not where it should be? And why
Yeah.
is that? And it's asking those kinds of questions, right? It's like the guy that
Yeah.
texts the girl and he doesn't hear from her in 5 minutes and he freaks out because
Wait,
he
wait,
should.
wait, wait, wait. Hang on a second. You said the guy texts the girl and freaks out after he hasn't heard from her in 5
I've
minutes?
talked to clients where they say, I meet a guy, we text, and if I don't answer within 2 minutes, he's freaking out thinking I'm back with my ex having sex with some other guy. So men are full of fear.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So these are triggers. Why would a man
Yeah.
react to something like that, right? So these
Yeah.
are triggers. And
Very
so
interesting.
yeah, yeah. So I tell men, take a breath, ask yourself, is this a trigger and where is it coming from and why? And can I do something about it and fix it? And hopefully the answer is yes, you
Yeah.
can.
Do you think that like so that kind of a trigger that feels very much more feminine? That kind of a trigger, just my own hallucination.
Yeah,
Um, you
yeah.
know, Very interesting because I look at triggers. I know, and I've said this a lot of times, but like I look at triggers now. I mean, I'm not always this way, but
Mhm.
now I look at triggers. I'm like, ooh, isn't that interesting? If I can start
Yeah.
with like, that's very interesting. And
Yeah.
then I try to feel in my body, like, where do I feel it? Because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes when I feel it in my body or like
Mm-hmm.
understanding, where that's coming from my body, I can usually draw it back to something, some sort of
Mm-hmm.
situation or
Yeah.
incident, way back when that I've completely buried down in
Mm-hmm.
my subconscious. But
Yes.
it's just wanting to come out, right? Because we're always
Mm-hmm.
shedding new layers,
Yeah.
right? And new things like that. But I think like what you said, like ask better questions
Mm-hmm.
and then you get better answers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. So through this quarantine, right? So now you're in Canada, correct?
Yes. Yes. I'm
Okay,
near
so you
Toronto.
guys are you guys still in quarantine?
No, we're in a second phase. So they've opened up patios, but not
Okay.
restaurants. I think they've opened up salons. Not all beaches are open. Most aren't yet, but there are
Yeah.
some parks that are open. So they still have a ways to go.
Yeah. I'm curious, what have you noticed any changes in your, clients that are you do you work with singles? Do you work with couples? How does this work?
Right now it's 100% women.
Okay.
Men are really hard to bring to the table because most of them
No,
figure they're
really?
exact. Yeah. Yes. I'm really eager to work. I really want to be working with couples as well because I love seeing that kind of growth
Dynamic.
between the two and
Yeah.
dynamic. Yeah. Um, and adding elements of tantra into that too to bring them
Yeah.
closer and deeper. I'm very much that way myself naturally, and I can see the importance of it and beauty of it. But yes, women for sure. I think with the extra time on their hands and more time to think, they've been able to kind of reevaluate. Okay, I'm in this marriage or I'm in this relationship. It's just real, things are not. I'm not
Yeah.
happy. I'm not sure what to do, but I'm not happy.
Yeah.
One of them, the husband sleeps in another room, she sleeps in her room. There's no intimacy. It's like, why am I here? And I'm not happy. And he's not going to change. It's been many years and he still hasn't changed.
So what do you tell how do you work with your clients that are like that? I mean,
Hmm.
I'm a big believer that, and this is just me, but I'm a big believer that, you know, the love that was once there can be rekindled,
Hmm.
right? If both part, if you really come to the table and you really are ready to do the work.
Absolutely.
I know from like my experiences, um, I went through an amicable breakup last year. So I don't know,
Yeah.
and I know we're more recently connected, but I was very public about it.
Okay.
And actually shared it, about it online and that sort of thing. And um, one of the things that I noticed and realized, well, because first of all, we broke up because there was no polarity, zero polarity. We loved each other. We were great friends. Um, he actually told me once, he's like, I just don't think we're in love with each other. Like, I think we love each other a lot. And we love each other a lot, but I don't think we're in love with each other because we had no polarity. I
Yeah.
emasculated the heck out of him. Um,
Yeah.
because I didn't feel safe. And I mean, there were certain times I did and that sort of thing. And I also had to realize I had to give myself a little bit of a break because, he let me emasculate him too.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm. Yeah.
And owning that, and owning my part in that as well. And realizing that polarity is a huge component of a relationship, and it's so
Mm.
important. And,
Yeah.
polarity, intimacy, and I feel like it's not talked about enough. I know before we started recording, I was telling you a little bit about Jaya. I went to Jaya. If for those of you guys that don't know, I'll put a link in the show notes, but um, she's I don't even really know what you'd call her, but she's a sexual healing coach
Mm.
that does incredible events. And she's the founder of the erotic blueprints. And so it's
Mm.
understanding the different blueprints that we all have. And oftentimes, like when we're in a relationship with someone, we're
Mm.
not necessarily going to have the same blueprint, which is
Mm.
okay. It
Yeah.
actually creates variety and can be a beautiful thing. But there's ways of creating polarity and
Mm.
interplay with
Yeah.
like within those blueprints.
Yeah.
Because polarity is such a big thing, and if you lose that, it's kind of like, where do you go?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that's when it comes to men, a lot of it is because they don't know who they are and they don't
Yeah.
have. I talk about confidence, but what I found with myself is, I thought of myself as becoming more confident, but the more I became uniquely who I was and owning who I am,
Mm,
it stopped being about confidence. It was just being completely authentically me.
yeah. And
And
because that draws out the confidence, because you
yeah,
are who you are. You don't have to try to be someone else.
exactly, exactly. And so when men don't know who they are, this is my saying, I use it all the time. How can a man be himself if he doesn't know who he is? And if he doesn't know who he is, who is he being?
Mm,
So
that's
guys,
powerful.
who are you? Who do you want to be? What kind of man do you want to be? It goes back to my first question to
Yeah.
myself.
I love
But
that.
and when you get into intimacy and sexuality, the thing that I've come to understand even recently, and I didn't realize it, because I never really thought it through maybe, but when you have a man that is not awakened, he doesn't really understand his emotions. He doesn't understand his mental state or how his mind works, triggers, and all the different things like that. All he really knows is his physical being. You know, that's all he can really bring to the table for intimacy. Um, and whether you want to talk about stamina and ability and all that stuff, but you take a man that's awakened, and he's spiritually awakened, he's emotionally mature, he can articulate his feelings and thoughts and emotions, then with intimacy with a woman,
Mm,
he can roam. He can go up into his spiritual nature with her. He can drop down into his physical. He can move back up into his emotional. He can go all over the place. It keeps huge variety. It's incredibly fulfilling for the two of them because he gets to express himself. And the beautiful opposite side to that is then she can do the exact same with him because he
yeah.
can he can handle it, he can understand it, and he can receive it, and they can play off of that with each other. But that can only happen if a man understands who he is. And that's where a lot of the
Oh,
breakdown goes is the man doesn't know, and man can't bring to the table what he doesn't have. He
yeah.
can't pretend that because he doesn't know what it looks like, he doesn't know what it sounds like, he doesn't know how it should be. And that's what I try to do with men, is try to get them on the journey to know who you are. It's going to affect every part of your life, your career, your relationships, your sexuality, how you see yourself as a sexual man, your intimacy with a woman, your ability to manifest wealth, and like everything, all your
Yeah.
relational skills, like everything are going to be
I feel an event coming on.
affected. You do?
I feel like there needs to be an event,
Yes.
and I would love to help you plan it.
I think that's a
Because
wonderful idea.
I'm not kidding, because I like just the way you're talking about this, and I think it's so important.
Mm.
And just again, as a single woman right now,
Mm.
um and I've dated here and there. Um and as I've continued to grow and start to see certain things, I'm starting to see very much how we all show up and own ourselves and own our truth and like show up in our authentic self. We're going to
Mhm.
draw more of that in,
Yeah.
which is incredibly powerful. right? And then when you look at the space of, being intimate and having that space to explore,
Mm-hmm.
and that safe space, right? I call it a
Yeah.
container, right? Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
safe container to
Mm-hmm.
explore and, you know, get curious about each other, go into those different realms,
Mm-hmm.
and embrace that spirituality and that rawness, that boldness, that the light and the dark, like all of those different elements.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is powerful.
It
It
is.
is
It is.
incredibly powerful. And I think it unlocks so much more. So as you were talking about just like abundance, right? And
Mm-hmm.
wealth, right? We
Yeah.
trap a lot of energy down in those lower centers,
We
right?
do.
We got to get
Yeah.
that moving,
We do. Absolutely. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I find it fascinating that, again, the more I'm starting to like dive into this and learning about, sexuality and how intimacy, because women, we're like, we can sometimes get like, oh gosh, we look at intimacy and like, oh, we just want to be connected because we're always trying to connect, right? Like we
Yeah.
have to connect with everything, no matter what. We're always
Mm.
connecting to something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, what we want most is to be able to connect with our partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, yeah.
oftentimes it comes down to just understanding each other and create like having those different levels of connection,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be, in the bedroom, intimately, you know, or just day to day,
Yeah.
just roaming along. There's so
Yeah.
many different levels that you can
Mm-hmm.
explore. And I think it's so powerful.
Yeah. I say that every emotion that a woman emotes in a relationship is her crying out for intimacy with the man.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
connection, intimacy, that whether
Yeah.
it's anger, whether it's frustration or joy or happiness, whatever it may be, she wants to connect with you, man. And she's using every available resource within herself to get your attention, to connect with her and to be
So
intimate. Not,
true. It's
yeah,
so
intimate,
true.
not just intimate physically, but to be intimate with emotions and to
Hmm.
feel the soul of a woman. I always say when I first, so when I first went on my journey, I thought, okay, the kind of woman I want to be with or have in a relationship, I want to reach so deep into her soul that it will change her life completely. That was my desire, to become that kind of a man that I could reach, that she was open enough and willing enough because I created the safe space, the container, the cocoon,
Hmm.
and woo her and desire her and chase or pursue her, not chase her, but pursue her, and where then she's so open to me that I just can reach as far down as I need to touch her soul and to bless her and to show her, you know,
Like, I'm like blushing.
yeah. But that should be all men's desire. That all men should be wanting that. I feel. I think they
Do
should.
you think they do?
I think they have maybe a glimpse of it. I mean, I have a much bigger vision of it because I've been on this
Right.
journey and I've grown
Right.
so much. But I think men, all they can really think of is I want to have like mind blowing sex. That's all. They can't
Hmm.
get much further than that because they're only still in their physical nature. They're
Yeah.
not thinking I want to feel my emotions be rocked. I want to be broken by the love from this woman. I want to be completely devastated by her. I don't think many men talk that way. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Oh
And
my
that's,
God.
and
Yeah.
because men say, "Oh, I just want to really destroy her," right? But they're thinking of devouring in a more physical way. But I'm saying, what about your emotional, your own soul, allowing it to be so open and vulnerable and exposed that she can destroy you, but in such a
Mm.
beautiful, loving, glorious way that it brings up this new masculine part of you, a new man within you can start to arise from that. That's what
Yeah.
I want. That's the kind of experience, sexual experience I want. It's
Yeah.
spiritual. I mean, it's life changing. It allows you to begin to really see yourself.
Mm.
Because I did a post the other day, I reposted something, and it was, to men, it was like, how intimate are you with yourself? How intimate are you with your emotions? How well do you even know your emotions? Like, how intimate are you with your mind or even your body? How well do you know your body? For the kind of pleasure you may seek, or what what are the things that really move you, right?
Yeah.
And like how intimate are you with yourself? Because a man can only be intimate to the degree with a woman that he is with himself. So the
I
more
love
intimate a
that.
man can be with himself, then he can go to that degree with a woman. But a lot of men can go a certain level and then they kind of tap out, they kind of level off, and they can't go any deeper with a woman as far as expression or talking and being intimate in conversation even. And
Yeah.
women want to keep going deeper. Yes, I love it. Let's go more, more, more. And they go, that's all they've got, right?
Yes, that's so true. That's
Yeah,
so true. Oh, that's so interesting.
yeah.
It's funny when you talk about pleasure. So, I'm going to bring up Jaya again. So when I was at this Path to Passion event, she talked about AB games and like understanding pleasure and like finding pleasure and like um what does that look like?
Mhm.
And creating a space. And I mean, you can do this with your girlfriends, you can do this with your significant other, you can do it with however you want. But it's finding our pleasure, right? Understanding where our pleasure is. Like, you could take a feather and just drape it all down your arms and you're blindfolded and you're just
Yeah.
experiencing that, right? Like feeling it
Mhm.
and then giving yourself that recall, right? To then be able to articulate that. Because I feel
Mhm.
like we don't know what we don't. I mean, we're kind of like, I feel like we were just kind of like ships just sailing in the night, just kind of figuring this thing out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But there's very I think there's a lot of power in being intentional and understanding like how do you experience pleasure? Like what does that
Mhm.
look like?
Yeah.
I'm going back to the erotic blueprints. I'll definitely send this to you, but it's
Mhm.
it's really fascinating because like when you look at there's like the energetic, which is someone that can actually did an ebook on this. But the energetic is really being able to feel that energy and that really is turned on by space,
Mhm.
right? Creating that kind of elusive space between,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and can orgasm with,
Mhm.
that like without even physical touch,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
That's a very spiritual experience. There's energetic, so that's energetic, and there's shadows of all of the blueprints, right? That like turn us off really quickly, and so it's like
Yeah.
really interesting, kind of like diving into it. I'll share this with you after the
Mhm.
show, but
Yeah.
then there's sensual. Sensual is like all about touch and feel
Yeah.
and creating an environment and
Mhm.
music and whatever that is. And then there's sexual, which is all about like let's get this, let's get at it, let's make this happen. Boom, 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 done. Let's move on.
Yeah. Mm.
And then there's kinky, which what was it like? There's psychological kinky, and
Mhm.
then there's um the I wouldn't say it's like darker, but there's a lot of different elements of kinky. Kinky is a
Yeah.
very like broad spectrum.
Yeah. It'd be
You
different for
know,
everybody. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Interpretation. Yeah.
Um, and then there's shapeshifter, which is like a version of all three or all
Mm.
all four, all of them.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating was you start to like look at the superpowers of these blueprints, and then
Mhm.
you look at the shadows and how often. I mean, sometimes it can be like our turnoffs can happen so quickly and we may not talk about it that then we create these wedges and we find ourselves like getting further and further and
Mhm.
further
Yeah.
when like the thing that we want to do is move closer and closer and closer, right?
Mhm.
um so it's really fascinating. I'll have to
Yeah.
share with you
Yeah.
that work, but
But you
going back
know
to the
something.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, no,
Finish your
please, no,
thought.
no, please, no, no, please go ahead.
Okay. No, I was going to say that for men, I think a lot of it, they have a hard time being that vulnerable.
Mm,
It gets to be, it begins to feel very real. And when it begins to feel very real, they get afraid.
mm,
It's like hugging somebody for over like 20 seconds, gets very vulnerable. Eye gazing more than 5 seconds becomes very vulnerable. Many people can't do it. They think they can, but when you actually, I tried to do it with a girl I was in a relationship with, because
mm,
I wanted the two of us to begin to get into tantra. This is going back a few years. And I said, let's just start with simple eye gazing. We were just facing each other. She wasn't in my lap or anything like that. We're just cross-legged front. and she couldn't do it for more than 5 seconds without turning away. It was just too vulnerable. It was too
Yeah.
intense. And so I
Yeah.
think a lot of you have to be ready for that. And I think a lot of people think they are, but when it comes right down to it, they're not. And it comes to knowing
Yeah.
who you are again.
Yeah. So, and this is another thing on that note, on that front. And I bring it back to the AB games
Hmm.
because part of setting up the AB games was creating a safe container. So
Yeah.
everybody has to agree on like what the
Mm.
kind of rules of the road are, if you will.
Yeah.
And I feel like because of that, it creates that safe space where you can feel like you can let go,
Yeah.
right? And you can feel safe. Um, but I love what you said about eye gazing. I love doing that. I've done that
Yeah.
a couple different times at some events, and I
Hmm.
actually had an experience. Um, how was it? Date with Destiny. Have you been to a Tony Robbins event? Have we talked
I
about
haven't.
this?
No, we haven't, but I have not.
You haven't. Okay. You
I
well,
haven't.
when events start happening again, we got to get you there. They're pretty amazing. Um, but not but and I was at a leadership event this past December, and as we were closing it out, I remember it was like the second to last day or something, but we were closing it out and we did this powerful eye gazing experience. And we basically did this with someone we hadn't talked to, we didn't know.
Hmm.
It couldn't be someone that we knew. And I did it with this incredible man, Luis. He lives in Venezuela, or from Venezuela. And um, I think we did it for 5 minutes, and all we did was just send each other love.
Hmm. Wow.
And I will tell you, like, I mean, I was bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I
I
can
mean,
imagine.
bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
He, like, when and I actually have a recording of it, of like us talking about it afterwards. And he was telling me how like he saw me as like a little girl, and like with my curly hair just like bouncing around, and
Hmm.
like he saw me as like a rebellious teenager, and I was like, oh my god. And like, and then like, and I saw him like running the bases like in Venezuela, like as a little boy. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just the craziest thing, and it
Wow.
is so powerful.
It
It
is.
is so powerful. So ladies, if you have a guy that you're kind of interested in, and you can get him to do this, like,
Hmm.
whew, I'm
Yeah.
getting warm just talking about it.
Yeah. Well, it's
It's
I talk about vetting a
amazing.
man and how to vet a man when you're starting to date.
Yeah.
And I think
Let's
that's
talk
one.
about that. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think women do this enough. I think women
I don't
feel
think
that
so
they're being,
either.
I think they feel it's kind of mean and maybe a little bit manipulative. But I say, considering the fact that you may have been in relationships where you didn't, and then you had to put up with this for a few years,
Yeah.
it's a good practice to do. And it goes beyond, are you a smoker? Are your teeth real, or do you wear false teeth, or have you got have a
Right?
criminal record? It goes to, asking a type of question where he has to think and go deep, where he really needs to think about it, and can he go there? And it's watching him react to different situations.
So
It,
what kind of question? If you had to just put one out there, what kind of question?
oh boy. Um,
The ladies are really going to appreciate this, by the
okay,
way.
let me think about it. I have to think about that for a second.
Okay.
One of the
Take your
things that
time.
yeah, one of the things women should be doing is asking what the relationship with their mother was like, what their mother's like, what they think of their mother.
Mm.
That's going to say a lot about the kind of man he is. I'm going to say for the most part.
Mhm.
Um, and so that would be kind of a question to ask. Another one is asking him, where do you see yourself in 3 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What kind of, you want to find out if he has goals, if he's a man of vision that is planning ahead for himself, whether it's
Oh, I love
financially or
that.
whether it's to acquire, property, like whatever it may be for his business. Do you have aspiration for something greater than yourself? Or are you just happy where you're at? Because the woman needs to realize, okay, if he's just happy where he's at and I'm going to be in a relationship with him, I'm going to have to be happy with where he's at for the next who knows how many years. Or would I rather be with a man that has some vision, some dreams? They may be crazy, but he's going after them. He's a bit of a risk taker. Okay. But he seems to be, happy. You
Yeah.
know, what kind of man would you rather be with? Women love excitement. Women love mystery. Women want to be in a story. They love drama. I'm meaning drama in the best sense possible. And
Yeah.
uh, and I tell men, what you need to do is create a story for a woman to be in. If you're in a relationship with her, you make a story where she's the main character.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, yeah, and you that definitely keeps the fire going. That keeps the mystery going. It's like if she knows that you're she's on your mind and you're creating this thing and she's in it, she's going to be thinking about you all the time. She's going to be wondering what's coming next, which will keep her still thinking about you. You will create anticipation and desire and excitement. You have no idea the blessings and the payoff you get from something like that. Because women,
True.
I mean, women love romance. Women want to be in the story. That's why they read. That's why they watch the movies, the shows they watch. That's why they
Oh
watch The
my goodness.
Bachelor.
Yeah.
And so then
So
getting back to
true.
vetting, I think, yeah, I can't think of a question off the top of my head, and I wish I could.
Well, you
Um,
kind of you gave it. Like, where do you
I
see
did,
yourself
yeah,
in 3 years? You know,
yeah.
like,
Those are good ones. A man has to think, okay, what armor? And then if he hasn't, it's like, oh, now I got to think of something. Now, what is it?
yeah,
And another
yeah.
thing I tell women to do is keep asking the same question over a period of time and see if the answers change.
Mm.
Because if a man is kind of saying what he thinks she wants to hear over time, it'll either piss him off. He'll go, why do you keep asking the same question? I've already answered, right? There's a sign right there. He has maybe some issues. And if his answers
Ooh,
keep
that's
changing, it's
good.
like, okay, then maybe he's not really fully knowing himself, or he doesn't know what his truth is, or he doesn't know. And he's just trying to play it off. But a man that knows his
Interesting.
truth and he's gonna say the same thing over and over. And I had that happen to me in a relationship. She kept asking me, if I did this, would you get angry? And how would that anger
Oh, we're
show up?
constantly testing, right? Like we're
Mm-hmm.
constantly all women are always testing
Mm-hmm.
because we don't feel safe. We have to feel safe. And if they waver, then like, Alison Armstrong talks about it, like then, you
Yeah.
know, we gotta we have to go to somewhere else. We have to seek shelter, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's that human animal, it's that instinct
Yeah.
within us. Because women, like we are driven towards safety,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if are you familiar? Have you? I'm trying to think of like who did this, but Tony talks about this a lot. But he does these demonstrations and like in his seminars, and he'll say, "Hey, men, in the last 30 days, how many of you have been, or have, you know, been threatened with your life, or is your life threatened, or felt like your life was threatened?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one or two people, like
Yeah.
no one, you know."
Mm.
Women, how about you? It's like 85%,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? In the last 30 days. How about in the last 2 weeks?
Mm.
50%. The last week, 30%, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
women, that's why we have diffuse awareness, right? We're constantly surveying like
Mm-hmm.
our environment. And so to
Yeah.
feel safe, and that was one thing with my, um, my most recent, let's say long-term relationship
Yeah.
was I didn't feel safe. And he knew it and he was very well aware and he's an incredible man. And, I cherish the time that we had together and he's an incredible human. And,
Mm-hmm.
I have so much love and admiration for him. And like, I didn't feel safe unless he was moving me. I mean, he's very strong and, you know, physically and he was fit and all of that kind of stuff. But he was also very much a risk taker when it came to his business.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I didn't feel safe, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and it's a
Yeah.
slippery slope.
Yeah. It is. A man, I think, can be a risk taker in the sense that she's involved with those decisions and she's kept abreast of what he's doing. And when they talk about it, she's in it with him.
Yeah. And if he has certainty, right? If he's
Mm-hmm.
convicted,
Yeah.
like if he has that conviction and like has that certainty, which I mean, I will say I'm very grateful for the men that I have in my life
Mm-hmm.
right now because I'm surrounded by just these amazing, beautiful protectors and
Yeah.
providers, and they're incredible.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, I've tasted it. I'm like, wow, because like when a man is fully in his masculine and like has that certainty, whew, I mean, it is such a turn on.
It
It
is.
is such a
Yeah.
turn on.
Yeah.
And so he can take risks. He can invest in real estate and do all of these different, I, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And have like be convincing, right? Like create
Yeah.
that certainty, stand
Yeah.
your ground. The
Hmm.
women don't want to be pleased. We don't want to be pleased. I mean, maybe in other realms, but like when a man pleases us, we feel unsafe because if that means that they've lost their way.
Mm. Good
That's
point.
mentioned in The Way of the Superior Man. Have you read The Way of the Superior Man?
I have not. I'm gonna have to
Oh,
now.
oh my gosh. You've
I'm
gotta check it out. It's so
sure it'll
good.
resonate for sure.
You will absolutely love it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible.
Hmm.
So anyway, well, this has been amazing. I've absolutely loved connecting with you. And I have a
Yeah.
couple of more questions
Yes.
for you, and that you may or may not remember when we scheduled this. But I always just like to know, just get to know people on a,
Yeah.
little more personal level.
Mm.
Um, what book has influenced you the most and why?
Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I was at an impressionable age of 15 or 16, and I was in my kind of introvert stage,
Mm-hmm.
by myself in the bedroom. We lived in a beautiful house, but we were out in the country, out of town. And I picked up that book and I read it, and I just really identified with Jonathan Livingston Seagull, the guy that was different, flying differently. He wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
And that really spoke to me. And I saw myself that way so much. Not that I may have been ridiculed, but there would have been the laughing at me just because I was different,
Mm,
but not
yeah.
really the putting down. I mean, I was bullied, but I think a lot
Mhm.
of us are, even if we aren't different, even if we are like
Yeah.
everybody else, some of us are just bullied. But I definitely was different. I definitely saw things differently. I might have even spoke differently. I was very sensitive as a young boy, very
Yeah.
sensitive. And so reading that was like, yeah, I like that guy. I like that seagull. So
That's
I can
awesome.
that really spoke to me. It was a short read. It's not a big book, but it just was
Yeah.
powerful for me at that age,
Well,
especially
why
the
fit in when you were born to stand out, right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. So if you could do anything you wanted tonight,
Mm.
anywhere for any amount of money, what would you do and why?
Oh. Well, my parents are from Holland.
Hmm.
I've never been. I've never had a real desire, but more so lately, I've thought it'd be really good to go there. And so I would just travel the country, go to the places that my parents grew up in. My mother has a royal blood in her lineage, and there's a
Oh,
castle.
wow.
There's a castle, named after her maiden name.
Wow.
I have a great my mom's uncle. My great uncle was in the Dutch resistance during the World War II. They were hiding Jews.
Wow.
They got captured, and he was put in front of a firing squad. And they have a monument set up for him and the other 10 men that were caught, and 9 men that were caught. So there's some really powerful history to our family, which I wanted to kind of touch that in a more physical way, tangible, by being there. Plus, it's a beautiful country.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My dad lived right near the dikes, where all the dikes are in Holland.
Yeah.
So to see that would be pretty cool. Yeah. So that
Wow.
would, yeah, let's fly there. Take a
That's
Learjet and go.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That'd be amazing.
Hmm.
Well, it's happening. It's already happening. It's already on its way. Right.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
if you had the opportunity to meet one person you haven't met, who would it be and why? And what would you
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about?
Joe Walsh, guitarist for, if nobody knows, he played in the Eagles and he had his own band. But Joe Walsh, because he nearly destroyed his life, but he was able to reclaim it and take it back. He fixed himself up. There were people around that loved him and cared enough to stick with him. I think he's a beautiful musician. I think he writes and plays amazingly. And I mean, I never lived a life like that, so I would definitely be interested in those stories, but more the story of his life now. I know that he met a beautiful woman. I think Ringo Starr's sister, I think, is his wife.
Okay.
beautiful woman, and how he was able to find love. It really speaks to second chances. And then when you have that
Mm,
second chance to really live it and squeeze every bit of love and joy and
mm,
beauty out of that.
yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So if you were that was really beautiful. You have a way with words, Bill. You have a way with
I do.
words.
Yeah.
Um, so you are stuck on a deserted island and you can only take three things. What would they be?
I remember my soulmate,
Uh-huh.
my guitar,
Yep.
and hair elastics.
Yes. I love that. So tell me, I get the soulmate. Pretty sure I get the guitar. Talk to me
Yeah.
about the hair elastics.
The hair elastics, well, I don't plan on cutting my hair.
Yeah.
And
I
she
like
will
it.
likely,
Rock it.
yeah, she will likely have long hair. And so I don't want there to be a fight over whose elastics are whose. So I have my own. If she gets asked the questions, then she can decide what she wants to bring. Hopefully I'll be
Oh my
the soulmate on
gosh.
her end. Yeah.
That's so
Plus,
amazing.
plus I can flick the matter too if I want for attention.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Um, okay, so when and where were you happiest in your life?
mm. From my eighth year till my 14th year, absolutely. That was, and oddly,
Tell me about it.
that was some of my more traumatic. I had more traumatic experiences during that time, yet it was my summer, it was my never ending summer, those years, 8 to 14.
Mm.
We lived on a street called Chapel Street. There were kids my age in every house.
Aw.
The maple trees that lined it kind of canopied the whole street in the summer.
Ah,
You
so
know, we
poetic.
Yeah, we played street hockey. There was a corner variety store where we go for a candy. I'd pick up milk and bread and butter for my mom. My mom had a very open door policy, very community. My parents are, so kids were always coming through. They called her
Yeah.
mom as well. Nicky
Aw.
Nine Door. I learned about girls then. A little what I sh- I learned a little bit about girls.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
and there were
process, it's an
it,
evolution, right?
it is, yeah. I'm still learning. But there were two doors down. There were twins, Betty and Brenda, beautiful brunettes. I mean, they were beautiful girls. They still are, and they were part of our group. We would hang out. We tell ghost
Um,
stories in the garage, and there were just beautiful, fun. I didn't have any sense of fear. Fear of my dad really was the only issues that I had, and that's where a lot of my trauma came from. A lot of my fear of myself and fear of
mm,
standing up for myself and speaking for myself. That's where that came from.
yeah.
But as far as a young boy, biking around on our CCM bikes with the banana seats and the high-rise handlebars all over town, it was amazing.
You're
And the
living the
boy,
high life.
we were, and the boy across the street, he was a year older than me. He had a portable record player, so we would be out in the back playing with Hot Wheels or doing whatever. We were 9, 10 years old, and he would be playing. He had collected records. He'd be playing
Mm,
Chicago, CCR, The Who, the Beach
yes.
Boys. In the summer, I mean, that was what we did. And so it was a real condensed time for me. It was really
Yeah.
colorful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
you're welcome.
That's really awesome.
Yeah,
All right. So I know that you have this Words Women Love book.
I do. I do. I
Where
have
can people, where, oh, I love this. I love this. Okay. Where can people find you, contact you, get the book, etc.?
the book is on Amazon. It
Awesome.
also is a link on my website, which is www.yourlovelifecoach.ca.
Awesome.
And the links are right there on each page,
Perfect.
as well as my Facebook and Instagram links.
Okay. Awesome.
And I chose the color orange because it's the sacral chakra color.
Mm,
So there,
that's
this book
good.
has
Yeah.
intention. There was intention put into that book. I did things for a very specific reason. Um,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, it's the same color as The Secret, or within the same orange range as The
Yeah.
Secret. And I think there's another book of 365 quotes of inspiration. I forget the author, but they're all in orange, all the same size.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put real thought into that and intention. So it can be found on Amazon.
Awesome.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
women have,
Well, this has been amazing.
yes,
Yeah.
has been.
This is I've truly just I've enjoyed so much getting to know you and connecting with you.
Yeah.
And I'll have to have you back on the show again. It'd be so
Please
fun.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'd
whatever
love to
you
hear
have
your thoughts
on,
on the way of the superior man once you
yeah,
read
sure.
that. It'd be
Hmm.
really interesting
Yeah. And you have
to
and you
discuss
say you
that.
want to do an event now.
Yeah, I know. I feel like there might be an event in our future.
Absolutely.
Just saying.
Uh-huh.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So when all this
That's been
quarantine
great.
stuff lifts.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I mean, you've been so open and you've been so reflective to what I'm doing
Oh,
and vulnerable and, yeah, blessing. Just so amazing.
no, well, thank
So
you. I
amazing. Thank you.
appreciate that. I take that in and that
Yeah,
means a
too.
lot.
Yeah.
I really truly appreciate
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
So any parting thoughts? Any parting thoughts that you want to
Hmm.
leave our listeners with,
Yes.
that maybe single and,
Hmm.
just kind of curious.
Yes. Well, for men listening, I want you to really seriously ask yourself the question, what kind of man do you want to be? And if you aren't
Mm,
that man, are you ready to make that life choice to go through that journey to become that man?
mm,
That's what I would say to men. And I would say to women, love yourself, honor yourself, give yourself permission to speak your your truth, to speak your what your identity is. Don't give away your identity anymore, and begin to find clarity and establish healthy boundaries, and then keep them.
mm,
Because when you don't, you betray yourself, and every time you betray yourself, you traumatize yourself. And I don't want that to happen. I want
yeah.
women to rise up in their feminine goddess. I want them to be beautiful beings to express the way that they were designed to be expressed. That's
Mm.
what I want for women.
Ah, I love that.
Mm,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you so much. It has
You're
been just
welcome.
such a gift having you here.
Oh, thank you,
Oh,
Katie. It's been a
I really, really
great.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mwah. All right, we're gonna stop this.
Yes.
Let me see.